All right, good afternoon and welcome to John Box Watercolor. Today we're going to be doing a Western scene, which is one of my favorite genres of art. But before we get started, if you wouldn't mind giving this video a thumbs up, and if you like what you see, consider subscribing. I'm going to put our reference photo over here on the right-hand side of the screen so you can take a look. And I've done something really important to this reference photo. I've edited it and put a black and white filter on. And the reason for that is I want you to start forgetting about color when you're doing your artwork. You can see that the picture reads very clearly and all the detail is preserved, but there's no color in the photo. That's because tone is king when we're painting, and that goes for any medium whatsoever. And today we're going to be just breaking down our scene here into just 3 tones. We're going to have our light tone, which is going to be the sky and a few highlights on our main figures here. We've got our middle tone, which is going to be this foreground. And then we've got our dark tones, which are going to be primarily on our main figures here. And again, I'm not thinking about color at all. Something I see a lot of beginners do is they sort of paint around all of their little figures and they don't let their layers of watercolor add up. That's how we're going to get those really deep and dark tones. So you're going to see me paint right through these figures on our first and second wash because, again, I'm going to be going darker. So let's go ahead and get started. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to throw some water on our sky here. Just kind of move this brush around. I want to leave a few areas of dryness. And as I work my way down here, I'm going to make sure to just go ahead and saturate the paper. All right. Now, this first wash, I want to be very light, and that's why you're going to see me doing this sort of thing where we pre-wet our paper. It just helps the paint spread out a little bit. All right, let's get our palette wet. All right. And as I mentioned, the reference photo is not truly black and white. That's just an edited one. But for our photo here, I think we're going to try to do somewhat of a cooler sky. I want to keep it fairly neutral. But again, all that water should really help keep it light. And it may look dark now, but as this painting dries, it will lighten up tremendously. I've got some Cobalt and Cerulean Blue up there. And I'm trying to move my brush quickly here because I want to leave some gaps of light just to get a bit more of an interesting sky. All right. I think that looks pretty nice. All right, we're going to start working down towards our middle ground here. And I'm just going to warm the color up. As I mentioned in the beginning, we're going to be painting over this. And so I'm not too concerned with color. I'm just thinking temperature. The ground is going to be warmer, and that's all that matters. I'll leave a couple of warm highlights too on our figures here. And we'll paint around those when we get onto our second wash. But again, I'm not worried about too much here. Just thinking about warm, moving my brush, and that's about it. We'll get warm towards the bottom here. Perfect. Okay. Now, let's grab a paper towel and let's work our sky just a little bit here. I want to have a mixture of hard and soft edges, but I just want to make sure to limit. I don't have too many hard edges. I definitely like the soft edges in the sky. I think that looks nice. Let's get just a little bit of a darker color here, just to kind of create some shadow underneath maybe some of these clouds here. There we go. Something like that. And again, moving the brush quickly. And it looks dark, but that's going to lighten up a ton. Okay. Just going to soften it where it's meeting those hard edges there. I'm just squinting. Okay. Just soften that up. All right, perfect. Let's let this dry and we're going to come back and start our second wash. All right, this is now completely dry. Let's go ahead and work on our second wash here. Now, again, I'm going to be painting through most of our figures here, but I am going to leave a few areas with this first wash so that I can kind of have some highlights later on. Now, for our foreground and the kind of background area here, I'm thinking it's going to be mostly warm, but I think I'm going to throw in a slightly cooler back edge. Anytime you've got a cooler color, it generally helps push back objects, and the warmer they get will pull them forward. So I want to keep it a little bit cool in the background there. So let's see. The start of our kind of horizon line starts right kind of midway right there, something like that. And I think that's all I'm going to do in terms of a cooler area. I think I'm going to immediately start to get in here and start to warm things up. All right. And let's grab our paper towel. I'm going to have that handy here because I do, like I said, want to have a few areas where I can leave highlights on our main figures here. Let's really brighten this up. I've got some burnt sienna, a little yellow ochre here. I want to really get some warmth up here. Maybe throw in a little Mayan Orange, mix things up a bit. Again, I've got my paper fairly wet as well. And all I'm thinking here is warm, and how do we make this interesting, right? I don't want to just keep one plain color the whole way through. I got to have a little something to break up our shapes here. And I mean, if you think about it, if you look at a landscape, there's always going to be little areas of dark and light. I do want to keep, I splattered into my sky a little bit. Let's keep that clean. I think our sky turned out really nice. All right, let's darken up the bottom of our paper a little bit here. All right, as things get closer to us, they're going to get darker. What I'm doing here, anytime you're going to splatter, it's a really fun technique to use in watercolor, acrylic, anything. But you want to understand that it's not going to be very accurate. And with that being said, you need to have an area where you're okay with excess splatter. So I'm not going to splatter my brush in this direction because it's going to tend to get a line that's vertical here, and I want to keep my sky pretty clean. So I'm going to orient my brush horizontally here, just so those excess splatters don't go anywhere that I don't intend them to. And I'm picking up almost just pure pigment here. That's just some burnt sienna. Our paper's pretty wet. I'm just letting that kind of run down the page there. I'll really add some dark there at the very bottom. Let me even throw just a little bit up there. Just a little something. Let's pick up some yellow ochre. Just looking to get some interest here in this foreground. And so far, I think that looks pretty nice. All right, let's take my paper towel. Let's get those brushes out of the way. And let's just make sure we've got a couple of areas along the kind of top back edge of our horse and our cow over here that we can keep a few highlights on. It may be a good idea too, if I'm going to be adding shadows with these figures, to do it now while everything is still wet. And I may just give the indication of one of those shadows. I'm going to cool it down here because I really want this to read as a shadow. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cool that down and just pull just underneath. It needs to darken up a little bit. And you probably won't be able to see much of this once this dries up, but I don't know. I kind of want to go ahead and throw something in there. All right. I think that looks pretty good. The lower half here is just lightened up just slightly. So I want to try to preserve some of that darkness right down there at the bottom. Okay, I think this looks nice. Let's clean our sky a little bit. Again, always keep that paper towel on hand. Perfect. All right, let's let this dry and we're gonna come back and add in the figures. That's the fun part. All right, we are ready to start on our figures. So I think the first thing I'm gonna do is, let's start with the little calf over here on the right. And I've talked about this in previous videos, but make sure that you are thickening up your paint. Too many beginners are too afraid to go in there and really pick up some thick pigment. All right, so I'm gonna really monitor how much water I'm pulling in here. And I just put some Chinese white out there. This is gonna be a neutral tint. I've got a neutral gray and a warm gray up here. And I'm just trying to pull almost completely waterless pigment here. And I'm just gonna let them bleed together, you know? That's one of the strengths of watercolor, and so you've gotta try to manipulate and take advantage of that. I'll do something like that. Okay, grab a smaller brush for this top line, just to keep things nice and clean. And normally on this channel, we do artwork that is a bit more abstract when it comes to figures and things like this, but today we're gonna have to be pretty accurate here. All right, I'm gonna warm this up just a little bit with a little burnt sienna. So I'm gonna be taking my time and really focusing in here. I think our sky turned out excellent. Again, just working my way down here. Okay. Sky and foreground look very nice. It's got a little tail out the back here. Something like that. Okay. Let's keep moving along. And again, I'm just pulling straight from the pail there. All right. And so what I'll do is I'll use that larger brush just to get some paint down there on the paper, and then I'll take this much smaller brush to come in and get those clean lines that we're looking for here. I'll just pull that down a little bit. Grab a little water. And you just want to take your time here. Now, unfortunately, it's hard for me to see my sketch here underneath this foreground. So I'm going to try my best to create an accurate representation. But I remember when I was doing the sketch, I had some trouble getting this right. I do not like that bottom leg there, so we're going to dab that out. I'm going to take a minute here to see how we want to do this. All right. Let's just keep working over here. Perfect. I'm going to grab some of that Chinese white pigment. Just drop it on top in a few places. It really has a cool effect, I think. And put it on the back there. All right. And now let's see if we can't. I gotta figure out this leg here. I want to move on to our horse. You know what, let's do something like this. I'm going to pull it behind the other leg. let's get that pull back, that kind of running motion. I think that looks better. And pull these legs a bit further down. And I want to have them kind of bleed off into the ground here. And we're going to work on that in a minute, but for now, it's got a decent impression going there. I'm going to leave that alone for a second. Let's go focus on our cowboy and our horse over here. All right, again, going really thick with the paint here. Going just straight into some burnt sienna. I've got my grays just to darken things up. And let's just start working through here. And I want to try to let the colors mix too on each of our figures here. I'm going to spray a little water. Just to add more interest. All right. And same kind of process as before. Lay the foundation with that larger brush. And then we're going to come in and let's get our details. Make sure everything is correct. Typically, when I do a painting like this, I like to listen to music. It can be a bit tedious getting all these lines. But today, I thought I'd do one of these as a demonstration. All right. Okay. Let's lay some foundation for our front legs. Same kind of thing as the cow here. I'm going to come back and take a shadow underneath because our shadows that we did prior to this wash have dried up very, very light. So we're going to want something a bit stronger. All right, I want to mix up a cool color for this shirt here. And I want to, if I can, I want to let it kind of bleed down into our horse. Just again, to help add that interest, you know. Put some dark paint there. All right. Okay. And that's a little cobalt, a little lavender. Little Chinese white up there as well. And just trying to mix up a really nice deep color here. I want to keep, obviously, the pants a different color, so I'm just adding in some darker paint there. And you don't have to worry too much about details within the object. You know, you want to worry about the outline for sure. But within each object, you really just want to let it bleed and do its own thing. All right, something like that. Looks nice. I've got my palette knife here. I'm going to scratch a couple of, maybe some highlights and things in here. Could be the back of the saddle. Bottom of the boot or something. Again, just trying to break the shape up a little bit. It can always be a little abstract. All right, almost forgot. I've got a dry brush here. I'm going to use to kind of pull off the back of this thing to get that that tail, that horse hair there. Yeah, something like that. That looks fine. And let's keep working our horse here. Let's brown that up. Let's work the face before that dries. I also want to spray this calf a little bit just to keep it wet. And I'll come back to with that dry brush and add some mane hair as well. Okay. Something like that. Now, horses can be tricky because it's very hard to get their proportions correct. I think I need to thicken this, elongate that just a little bit there. I'm going to try to thin the neck out. Let's do that a little bit. There we go. Just make it a little bit longer there. Okay. I'm going to mix up a little bit of a skin tone here. Just for those areas. All right. And we're going to go with a black cowboy hat. I may I think we'll leave just a little highlight there. Along the brim. Okay. And just adding a little shadow there. Could be underneath the arm. Oops. It's the wrong tone. All right. Let's get that lasso in there. Okay. And we've got more of that lasso here in this hand. Along with, we've got to have the reins of our horse here. All right, something like that. Just adding some darker areas for those hooves. Okay. I'm going to brown this cow up a little bit. I didn't like our coloration we had. I'm going to pull through there and just kind of neutralize everything out. Okay, something like that. One thing, I need to extend these legs a bit because it will look too much like the cow is kneeling. Once we put the shadow in and show that these hooves are above the ground, it should help a bit. I'm going to mix up a cooler color here. One thing I want to do when I'm making a shadow here is you got to move quickly. You want to create interest as well. I'm just drawing off of the hooves that I know to be in the air. All right. And we've got our figure here. You're almost drawing a mirror-like reflection. But again, more than anything, you just want to give it some life. It just needs to be dark. Dark, and give it some movement. Okay. All right, we're coming along here. Let's see, what can I do? Just kind of wiping through. Maybe to give a little bit of motion. Again, just trying to create some interest within our objects. I need to darken it up just a little bit under that cow there. Add a little water. Yeah, something like that. Okay. I think we're looking pretty good. I'm going to dry brush in some lines back here, just to break things up a bit. I'm tempted. I don't know if we want to add a fence or not. What do we want to do? And you know what else? Again, always just looking to add some variation here. I'm going to throw a white shirt there. I think our horse has got some really nice abstract look to it. That looks excellent. I think I'm going to add a small fence line, I think. Just to add some interest back behind them. It looks a little open. I thought about adding more cattle, but I wasn't super pleased with how that one turned out, so I didn't want to try my luck with any more of them. Ooh, that's powerful, but I actually like that. There we go. Looks like he's running right along the edge of a ranch there. Okay, let's see. Is there anything else I want to do right now? I think we're going to let this dry. We're going to add our highlights, and we'll be done. All right, let's finish this painting up. So I've got a little white gouache here, just to add a few highlights. We'll start in the back. We'll add a few little highlights along that post back there. Just adding some highlights here on the back of our horse, our cowboy. I'm gonna give him more of a white shirt, I think. Yeah, something like that. All right, same here for our calf. Maybe I'll just put one kind of white spot just along the bottom there, and I'll just use my finger to smear it a little bit. Okay. All right. Let's sign it, and then let's talk about where we did good and where we did not so good. All right. So I don't know how pleased I am necessarily with this painting. I really liked the reference. I think our sky turned out fantastic. Foreground looks nice. These figures, I think, should have been cleaned up a little bit. I should have spent a bit more time on my sketch. Oops, let's turn that back. Okay, I think I should have spent a bit more time on my sketch here. I think the proportions on the horse's head, this front body, look a bit off to me. I would have also liked to kind of clean up the legs on that calf there. I think the cowboy looks nice. It's very, it's got movement to it. It's very gestural. It's not, you know, too perfect. It's got a little movement to it, which I like. I like the abstraction through the body of the horse. Shadows look okay. But again, you know, overall, it was a fun painting to do. I really like Western stuff. So anyways, if you stayed with me to the end, I really appreciate it. I hope you learned something. If you haven't already, consider subscribing. And if you like any of this work, be sure to check out my store. Thanks.